Welcome, Coleman's 2015 Certified SBA 7A Dog Days of Summer, Week 2. Lance, I'm going to see you next week. I'm going to see you in 2 days in Dallas.
I'm excited about that, and I hope some of our participants are there. If you are, make sure and come by the Coleman booth.
We'll have a booth. We're gonna have a webcam set up, and we're gonna talk to people. It's gonna be fun. So come up, introduce yourselves. We'd love to have you. Week 2. You know how to do questions. You can send an email. You can use a chat. Raise your hand. We'll let you ask a question live. If we get too nervous.
Hey, Bob, can we get one of our participants to get a video camera so we can see them?
Ooh, that'd be fun. We should have a hologram of all of us. Let's go right to the polls. Do you order a new environmental study and updated appraisal when an SBA loan is put into liquidation? Why is this important, Lance?
Well, I think it's important to understand that SBA very clearly in the SOP 5057 does require that when a loan defaults, that original environmental study that you did at origination is not all you have to have. You have to have a new one when there's commercial real estate involved. Also, you have to have a default appraisal. Boy, we've got a good group.
Hey, and I haven't ordered one of these. What does an environmental study cost these days? What's a phase 1 cost us?
Your basic environmental study is about $2,000.
And the borrower, we can charge that to the borrower?
It is, of course, on a loan that's in default, Bob, it's a care and preservation expense.
Okay, so
and
we're gonna
once you liquidate your collateral, you take it off the top.
Okay, so we
before
can
you
put that in, and we have a 75% guarantee. SBA is going to pick up 75% of the cost. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you has a poultry house loan recently that was more than $2 million? We need to do some.
Did I write the question that
I don't know who
way?
wrote it. Joseph, you can bring that up?
Yeah, I changed it.
Oh, you changed it. Have you had? Oh, you're making me look bad. The way to go, guys. Have you had a poultry house loan recently that was worth it? All right, what's the backstory of this question, Lance?
Well, the Inspector General's office has started taking a much closer look at loans of more than $2 million. And in the area of environmental issues, the Inspector General's office is looking at all poultry house loans over $2 million. Unfortunately, Bob, we don't have anybody that has one, but it's something to know. Hot button item, when you look at the PAIRS review, in the areas that they take a look at, lending over $2 million is one of the categories that they take a close look at. In particular, business acquisition loans and poultry house loans over $2 million. And I ask that question just because I think it's something you should be aware of. There are potentially, right now it's only in poultry house lending, Bob. If it's over $2 million, it goes to the OIG's office for additional review. But it could have, I see business acquisition loans over $2 million going that same path.
And I don't know what's going on with these poultry farmers, but USDA B&I, they're rife with fraud also. There was a huge scandal that cost an administrator his job back in the 90s.
Well, there were some significant poultry house loans, Bob, over $2 million where you had a property where you had a $4 million loan, and then you come in and do the environmental study at default, and you found that there were $3 million worth of environmental issues.
Yeah, you had nothing. You have no collateral. Have you ever submitted a request to SBA to take title to contaminated property? Why would I ever want to do that?
Well, there are occasions where you have a property, it's got some environmental issues, and the cleanup cost is not significant, and there's still some net recoverable value.
Do I have to get SBA's approval to take that, or can I just say?
Absolutely.
Oh, you have to.
Absolutely.
No.
If you have a piece of commercial real estate that in the default environmental study is determined to have environmental or contamination issues, before you can make a bid on that at the foreclosure sale, you've got to have SBA's approval.
No one has had that fun job yet. That'd be interesting. Some of you will face that, I'm sure. The last poll question. What is your most common area of SBA lending from this list? And these are all red flags. It doesn't mean not to do them. It just means let's have a higher level of care when we do these types of financing. Correct, Lance?
Well, my primary reason for asking the question, this week we talked about environmental issues and servicing your SBA loans. These are the hot button industries for environmental challenges while you're servicing your SBA loans. Gas and C-stores are certainly one area. Nursing homes are not as bad. But,
I was going to say, help me out. Why is that on your list?
You know, a new nursing home loan, Bob, is not an issue. The nursing homes, when there's an acquisition of an older one, there are a few environmental issues that you have to deal with. Probably the most difficult in terms of environmental servicing would be dry cleaners and poultry house loans, and then C-stores. Your nursing homes are more of a problem when you have an acquisition of one that's, say, 20 years old. If you have a brand new nursing home, it's not that big of an issue.
It always amazes me when, and we've been doing this, I just did a webinar on underwriting collateral. The underwriters say, hey, we have this property, it's worth X, no issues, and then 24 months later when we submit it for purchase, all of a sudden that collateral's worthless. And we have very short memories after the recession. All those 504 loans that we thought we were in great position, those first liens of 50%, a lot of that collateral went bye-bye. So it's very important to take a prudent look at what this collateral's worth. So I assume week 2 was environmental.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to understand different aspects of SBA loan servicing from an environmental side. It certainly comes into play if the loan defaults. Bob mentioned something. There are a number of liquidation cases that I've worked where we abandoned the property because of environmental issues. Now, is that a horrible thing? It doesn't have to be, as long as you're aware of the servicing guidelines from SBA and the SOP 5057 and how to deal with environmental issues. The other thing that's critical, the poll question about taking title to contaminated property, there's 2 things to take away from that. One, if you have a piece of commercial real estate that goes into default, you need to get an appropriate level new environmental study to find out if there are any environmental issues. 2, if it's going to foreclosure sale and you know there's some value there, some net recoverable value, you need to make sure and get approval from SBA before you actually go out and take title to that property.
And make sure you have a good relationship with your environmental engineers so you know exactly what your exposure is. Email question number 1. We seem to be having a great deal of difficulty obtaining the landlord waivers assignment of lease on our SBA loans. You mentioned in your email the following. Basically, we can't get it, but the authorization says we need it. So what do we do?
Well, when you have the requirement for a landlord waiver, ideally you would be able to get it. But in reality, there are a lot of landlords that just dig their heels in and say, no, I'm not going to sign that.
Whose fault is that, Lance? I read this question, and that's a BDO issue. Or don't you think, whoever's putting this loan together, you need to solve that right up front, don't you think?
Well, I think so. But if you get to the point of the closing table, you need to take the landlord waiver to the landlord early in the game.
Right.
So you can work through those issues. Ideally, you would get it executed. But if you get to the closing table and as a prudent lender you still think you have a good deal without the landlord waiver, it's very important for you to know that you're going to have to submit a loan authorization change request to SBA requesting that be removed from the authorization and get approval from SBA. And you're going to have to provide some justification.
Right,
and
that's the key.
The justification, Bob, your response was right on spot. If there are no significant leasehold improvements, why is a landlord waiver really necessary? one thing I'll tell all our participants, the best thing the landlord waiver does for you is if you do go into default and you've got assets like inventory and equipment, it gives you immediate access to go take possession of that. And sometimes you'll have landlords that change the locks and put guards at the door to keep you away from doing it.
You've had the cops called on you, I know that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So you have to have some justification for removal of that. I will tell you that when I was deputy director at SBA, we had a circumstance where we just had a landlord who refused. The bank provided evidence that they made numerous efforts to get it signed, and they refused, and the bank provided detail on why it was still a prudent lending action to go ahead and move forward with the loan, and we approved the removal of the landlord waiver. So, two things. Bob brings out an excellent point. You need to get ahead of this early in the game when you're processing the loan, get in front of the landlord and get it presented to them, and you ought to be able to get it executed. But if you can't and you still think it's a great loan, you're going to have to send a loan authorization change request in to get that removed.
And that is not difficult to do. My comment is I'd be old school. I would sit that landlord down and say, hey, you're getting a tenant, we're supporting it, you're going to sign it or we're not going to do the deal. But I would not allow the landlord to hold that over the lender's head. But the poor closer or servicer, it's too late in the game. Change the authorization. That's all you have to do and say, hey, we think it's prudent, and move on. Anyway, that's a sore point with me. I don't understand why lenders allow the landlords to.
Actually, Bob, the landlord waivers protect the landlord to some extent.
Yeah,
I mean,
step in.
It requires the landlord to communicate with the bank, and the bank's going to step in and make sure that they care and preserve for their collateral.
Anyway, I'm sorry. That one bugs me. I think that's a poor management of the process, and I put that squarely on the shoulders of the BDO. They're not doing their job. Number two, when is an environmental investigation necessary? Are we allowed to rely on our original environmental testing, or should the testing be redone at this time?
We really already covered this, but when you have a loan, well, your environmental investigation is necessary in the origination process of the loan, but the next time it is necessary, well, there are actually two times. If you become aware of environmental issues at the property that may negatively impact the value of that collateral, it's required. But primarily, if the loan goes into default, it's time for another environmental study.
Lance, you and I we love reading these Inspector General reports. You've lived it. Have you ever heard any repairs on lenders ordering normal care and preservation of collateral issues and have a repair down the line? I've never heard of that. Have you?
No.
So don't be scared of that. Do it.
Well, I think a key takeaway here is doing what the SOP requires, and you're going to avoid the potential of a repair.
Yeah, you're going to be in more jeopardy if you don't do something. If you don't order it, then order it.
Well, the cost of it, well, if you have to do a phase two, it's certainly more than this, but a phase one's generally about $2,000.
Yeah.
And that is a care and preservation expense that when you liquidate collateral, those proceeds are applied to the care and preservation expenses first, so you're going to get paid back.
Yeah. Number three, Lance stated in Section 1 that we have to get SBA approval and any exceptions to policy, SBA or ours. If we accept our internal policy, why does SBA need to approve this if we document the file and why we did it? In other words, we think we're prudent. Why do we have to let SBA know?
Exceptions to policy refer to exceptions to the 5010 and the 5057. If there is something in your loan that does not meet the requirements of the 5010 when it's being underwritten, or if it's an exception to the 5057, then those have to be submitted for approval. And they're very rare. I don't know that I saw more than one or two exceptions to policy in my time at SBA. They're very rare. It's not referring to an exception to the bank policy.
Very good. What do we have on store for week 3?
Oh, one other thing on this question, Bob. Can we go back to it? Wait, they ask about the extraordinary servicing fee, and you can charge the borrower an extraordinary servicing fee. Typically, it's related to the management of lines of credit or a construction loan to help you recoup some expenses related to those construction inspections or inventories that you have to do. There's some fee requirements. I put the language from the 5057 in there. Extraordinary servicing fees have to be approved by SBA. Subsidy recoupment fee, you don't have to get approval from SBA on that. The only time you have to get a submission to SBA on the subsidy recoupment fee is when you want a determination. And when they talk about determination, basically they're talking about, do you want a waiver? And we dealt with that issue with a bank, or I dealt with that issue with a bank this week, Bob. Somebody had gotten an SBA loan with a 25-year term. Bank B comes in and offers them a 0.5% lower interest rate, and they pay the loan off after 12 months. And the bank's like, do we have to charge them this fee? And the answer is absolutely. It's in the note document that they signed.
Lance, isn't a subsidy recoupment fee a prepayment penalty?
Yes.
Okay.
Essentially it is. Yes. That's what subsidy recoupment fee is, SBA's way of saying prepayment penalty. It's just like I told you, Bob, having worked around SBA loans for most of my life, I go to work for SBA, and I've told this story before. I spent my first 2 weeks writing down acronyms and phrases that didn't make sense to me and the definitions, because SBA, I call it a prepayment penalty. SBA calls it a subsidy recoupment fee.
I wouldn't know. Would there be any circumstance SBA would waive that fee? I don't see it.
Well, if there's, for instance, Bob, you've got two partners, and you've got an SBA loan, 25-year amortization, you have two partners. Partner A dies. Partner A had a life insurance policy equal to the loan balance, and the loan's paid off by the life insurance policy. SBA would waive that subsidy recoupment fee every time.
I would imagine the secondary market holder is not going to be very happy that
it's going to have to be something like a death to get the fee waived.
All right, tell us about week 3.
Week 3, we're going to take a look at how to put together a servicing request, how to review it, what types of information that you need to gather on different types of servicing requests, the way to get approval, where to send them. I think as we go through, Bob, I'm sitting here as 2015 and 2020 at the pace SBA is making servicing actions unilateral. By 2020, I think they'll all be unilateral. But this week covers what if you have a servicing request that needs SBA's approval, how to put it together, what types of information that you need, and again, how to submit for approval of that servicing request.
Great. Do you have your reading assignments? Do you have any questions? Lance, I enjoyed it as always. Everybody enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you next Friday. Thank you.
Thank you.